don't need to rank and judge our students, simply to provide a clear path to learning. Many students are able to achieve high grades due to the incorporation of items that have nothing to do with understanding the material, such as simple practice, A for effort, and other types of filler. When presented with a complex question, we always ask, why can't they get it correct? How do we make sure that the grade received clearly communicates the level of understanding of that material? When I use the term score, what I mean is achievement level. I use this to distinguish it from a grade. Scores will be descriptive: beginning, developing, proficient, advanced, and expert. That's what I use. I think of it as an analogy with sports. During football season, for example, a team wins or loses based on scores during that game only. It doesn't matter how well they did on the previous game, and definitely not during the scrimmages or practices. It's only the game being played that matters. Similarly, each assessment stands alone. We look at the scores earned on a lab report, for example, and discuss the strengths and weaknesses on that assessment and set goals for the next time. We also look at patterns. The goal is to improve over time so that by the time you get to the end of practicing, you are ready for that final game. As described in part 3, we created and used these 6 levels for each of our learning progressions. Each level is generally associated with the keyword written here, but the learning progression fully fleshes out what that means for each practice. In other words, what does try look like for experimental design as compared to problem solving? Well, let's look at that. Beginning for experimental design requires that students state the task, collect and present data, and provide a description of the procedure followed. Beginning for problem solving doesn't require that. It requires that students attempt to solve the problem. While both represent trying, we thought about what would it look like to try at that particular practice. What minimum would a student need to do to demonstrate an authentic and sincere attempt? And so on for the other levels. The achievement levels have no inherent meaning, positive or negative. The level simply communicates what the student can do. The judgment will only come from a combination of the student's personal goal and whether or not the student is progressing over time. Then exactly what are the scores for? The most important things to note are: scores are not averaged. Everything matters and nothing counts, as we discussed earlier. The scores required to earn a particular grade are published at the beginning of the school year. What matters is the amount of each achievement level present at the time of assessment. The most common question I get from both parents and students: how do I know how I'm doing in this class if there's no grade? So there are 2 places to look: Genesis and Canvas. Genesis is the student information system that we use. In addition to student data such as address, contact information, and schedule, for example, it's a web-based recording system that teachers must use to report student grades. Canvas is what we use for our learning management system. It's most commonly used by individual teachers like myself to provide access to lesson materials and assignments and scoring of those assignments. I use Genesis to communicate student scores at the end of each unit. Therefore, scores on Genesis will not change until the end of that unit. At that point, all previous scores will be replaced by updated results. On Canvas, I will post descriptive feedback and scores for all individual assessments that I collect. Grades will only be posted on Genesis as mandated by the district administration, primarily at the end of each semester. However, updated scores will be posted within a week of the end of a unit. I do my best to update scores on Canvas within a week. For example, if I collect a lab report on Wednesday, I usually get them scored and returned before the next lab report is submitted sometime early the next week. I hate having assignments pile up on my to-do list, so you can rest assured I will get them back to you as quickly as possible. To view scores on Genesis, you must actually open up the class. It's going to say capital NG almost all year on the Grades tab. You have to click on Physics to see the list of practices with your current scores. I always accompany every score with a comment so you can easily interpret whether or not you are on track. To view scores on Canvas, open up the original assignment, then on View Feedback to see written annotations, and View Rubric to see scores for that assignment. Remember, the grade you have does not matter at all until the very end of the year. More importantly, we will talk as often as you like to better understand where you are at and where you have areas of opportunity.